I told the world how I felt about Vince McMahon potentially coming back to the WWE, but what does the WWE roster actually feel for themselves in regards to the situation? Well, according to Fightful, they reported today that WWE talent called the news exhausting, and this person was actually hopeful that Vince's tenure was 100% in the rear view. The person who said this had a positive relationship with McMahon, and another person also expressed concern about some of the talent that was rehired by Triple H. Many of the names brought back in recent months were actually let go by the Vince McMahon regime. However, a higher-up was said to not be as concerned, and this person pointed to the stock price increase, the boost in viewership, and better morale backstage after Vince McMahon left. The source did not believe that Vince would be back, and they noted it would be very selfish of him to do so. Similar sentiments were echoed by a longtime staffer. So yeah, I'm not the only person that doesn't want Vince McMahon in the WWE, and quite frankly, it's not shocking that people in the WWE don't want Vince McMahon back in the WWE. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up, though, is because something very interesting came up the other day, which was Petey Williams' name change, something apparently Vince McMahon puppeted. They basically, he kind of influenced WWE to change his name to Pete Williams. If you guys don't know, Petey Williams, former X Division champion, is in WWE as a producer. So who really knows what the hell is actually going on here? But when it comes to Vince McMahon and when it comes to Vince McMahon returning to WWE, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to see it. I'm not a fan of this. Obviously, other people aren't as well. WWE's business has done a really good job, and it's increased tremendously since Triple H, Stephanie, and Nick Khan took over. And by the way, one of my biggest concerns when all of this was going down was how would WWE be with a co-CEO system? Because typically most businesses that have co-CEOs don't typically work out well. And obviously it's still too early to tell, but it seems to be working just fine in WWE's case, which is a good thing for WWE. Now we have some massive news because WrestleVotes put out a very interesting tweet. Triple H severely underwhelmed with some of the WWE talent he brought back. So the tweet that WrestleVotes put out said, "I'm told a handful of talent brought back in the rehiring wave of WWE over the summer have underperformed and severely underwhelmed Triple H and others since returning to the company." Now, this is a massive story, and you got to keep in mind some of the people who have actually come back to WWE. I'm going to tell you guys what I think the issue is, and yeah, I kind of got to be a little negative here, but I'm just going to be honest with you. So we saw the return of Karrion Kross, Scarlett, Dexter Lumis, Candice LeRae, Hit Row, The Good Brothers, Braun Strowman, Johnny Gargano, Dakota Kai, Bray Wyatt, Tegan Nox, Emma, right? These are some of the names that WWE brought back since he came back into the company. And the truth is this, and this is just the reality. Dexter Lumis, Johnny Gargano, and Candice LeRae have a lot of potential because they are playing into the character, okay? They are getting reactions from the fans. They are definitely being warmed up to the crowd. Bray Wyatt's return has been pretty successful because WWE has garnished a lot of attention over Bray Wyatt's teases and the constant backstage stuff that is happening with Bray Wyatt on television. Even when he's not on television, it is creating intrigue for the product. WWE saw a huge upstick in their overall business by bringing back Bray Wyatt, despite the fact he hasn't wrestled a match. The Good Brothers have been pretty fine, right? They're doing the OC. Mia Yim is somebody else who is doing great since returning, and this is because WWE has inserted them in a storyline that is getting people's attention. Obviously, people don't like the Judgment Day, which it's working out in WWE's favor when trying to push the Good Brothers, when trying to push Mia Yim, because they're getting reactions. Dakota Kai and Io Sky, they were immediately placed with Damage Control, and there's something there that is not working, right? And I think the biggest issue when I look at all of these names being brought back is some of them have the fans don't know who the hell they are. And one of the biggest issues with Triple H and WWE bringing back talent has been, okay, you bring them back for a surprise, and that's great. You might even put them in a storyline. You might even put them on television on a week-to-week basis, but still the audience may not know who they are. And some of these people don't have a true identity. Karrion Kross was put into WWE And they've kind of done like this soft roll with him. They're not rushing him, but they've put him in some big marquee matches, and he's winning those matches. That is something that is worth it to WWE, because over time, the audience could get bought in. Plus, they're familiar with Karrion Kross, despite the fact that his first main roster run was a failure. But then you got to look at it from the perspective of like Tegan Knox, right? Just somebody in general who, you know, she didn't have a big reaction when coming to WWE's main roster initially. So when she came back, it's not like people actually cared. And I understand WWE's trying to do the right thing, and they're trying to take care of some of the talent that got let go. But ultimately, it's the way you bring back people. It's not the people themselves. It's important that WWE understands that you got to get the talent introduced to the roster and to the show. And the only way fans are going to get behind people is if they know that person's identity. This is why Braun Strowman, Karrion Kross, Bray Wyatt, that's why some of these people are getting good reactions. That's why the fans kind of understand what's going on, whereas some of the other talent there, that just doesn't seem to be the case. And I look at Dexter Lumis, Johnny Gargano, and Candice LeRae as a good example. They're only going to get bigger and more popular as they're put on TV and as people kind of figure them out. But look at what they did with Dexter Lumis for weeks and weeks and weeks. They teased something, and that was a big win for WWE. Now, what's really interesting here is New Japan and WWE technically don't have a working relationship, but a lot of people have been wondering what is going on with Wrestle Kingdom featuring a WWE star. Well, it's basically come out, and I absolutely love this. It's basically come out that Carl Anderson, when coming back to WWE in October, basically negotiated with WWE that he wanted to work the Tokyo Dome. And obviously, New Japan and WWE are going to have Carl Anderson compete at the Tokyo Dome by putting the championship belt on the line, the never openweight championship belt on the line against Hikuleo. Now, a lot of people are wondering, does this mean WWE and New Japan will work together in the future? And that's honestly a really good question. And while it doesn't appear that WWE has some sort of agreement with New Japan at this very moment, I would just say, don't be shocked whatsoever if in the near future, WWE allows more talent to do stuff like this. Keep in mind, one of the biggest reasons why Chris Jericho had left WWE was because he wanted to wrestle in Japan. There are a lot of talent in WWE who probably want to wrestle in Japan. It's probably a bucket list type of thing. And if it makes sense for WWE, they can definitely pull it off. Now, obviously, there's a lot of intrigue there because of New Japan, and obviously because AEW has a relationship with New Japan. But I'm just saying, don't get it twisted. Don't be confused. You never know at this point. Triple H would be more willing to work with New Japan than I think Vince McMahon ever, which kind of goes back to our first story of the day. Probably a good reason why people don't want Vince McMahon back in the company. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching.